Hello, I'm Dr. Ron Eglin, and I'm going to teach you here how to play Fractazmic Trap, which is one of the games that you can play with Fractazmic deck. Fractazmic decks are available from iccards.com or a lot of different catalogs. But right now we're just going to learn how to play one of the games here. A fun game to play, and a relatively straightforward game using the Fractazmic deck. So, first thing that you do is you're going to deal out, in this case, 5 cards face down. Works really well with 5 cards and 4 players. If you have fewer players, deal out 7 cards. If you have more players, stick with 5. Plays very well from 2 to 6 players. So each player has 5 cards. We're going to play this hand face up. I know it's going to be kind of hard to see the cards that the players have, but that's okay. I'm going to make it so that they'll be easy to see as they play them. So you've got each player now has their 5 cards, and we're going to start the round by putting a card in the middle. So the card in the middle is going to be the 1/5, and that's going to start play. We'll start play with player 1, who's going to also discard a card that's going to be the same suit as the first card played. The suit's green, so they're going to play a green card. Now, if you notice, they played a green card. You have a 1/5 and a 1/10 in the middle. Guess what that means? Your sum is 3/10. Okay, the objective of this is to create 1. So let's work on how you're going to create 1. Okay, player 2 now goes, throws down a 2/5. Sum is now 7/10. Getting pretty close to 1, but not quite there. Okay, player 3. Okay, they throw down a 1/5 because that's the card that they have. Okay, the sum is now 9/10. Looking pretty good for player 4 here. The sum is now 9/10. They discard their 1/10 that they have in their hand, which means the sum is up to 1, which means that they win that hand. So the hand's going to go over to them. And player 4, who did that, who actually went out, who played the green card to make it 1, gets to lead the next hand. They decided to lead in the red, so they lead with a 1/8. Okay, the 1/8 is now, so player 1's going to go next. He's going to throw down their only red card, which is a 3/16, which brings the sum up to 5/16. Okay, play continues around. So player 2 can throw down a 7/16, which brings the sum to 12/16 in this case. Okay, kind of nice here. Now notice that player 3 is going to throw down a 3/16. That brings the sum up to 15/16. Okay, so you're pretty close to 1. Not quite 1. Player 3 won't win it because they don't have 1 exactly. But look what happens here. Player 4's got 2 cards in their hand. They need a 1/16 to get the hand. They have to play a red card if they have it. They don't have a 1/16. They have a 1/8. Okay? Well, unfortunately, that 1/8 is not going to do it for this because he's now gone over 1. So if player 4 goes over 1, the hand goes to the person who forced them over, which in this case was player 3. So player 3 is going to be able to take that hand. This is called a trap. So player 3 gets that hand, and then they get to lead the next hand. So in this case, player 3 begins in blue, starts the game in blue with a 1/3. Player 4 will now go by putting it down to 5/12, putting the sum at 9/12. Player 1 throws it up to 11/12. Okay, throws that card that they have there. So they couldn't make it to 1, but they actually made it very close to 1, hoping that player 2 had a blue card but didn't have a 1/12, which they don't. So player 2 throws down their blue card, which is a 1/4, makes the sum 14/12. So player 2 has gone over. So player 1 gets that hand. Okay, and the sum, and player 2 is now forced over. Now in this case, I should have started to play with player 1. Instead, I started to play with player 2 here just to demonstrate, because I'm doing a little bit of demonstration. Player 1 should have led. Okay, just realize that. But player 2 is leading now. Player 2 throws down a 1/10. Okay, because I want to show you now, player 3 does not have a green card, so they've got to draw one. Notice that in the previous slide they didn't have a green card. Okay, but now they do. Well, the magic of there is that they drew one off the top of the deck, which meant that they were able to play. And they got lucky and they drew a green card for the first draw. Well, what happens if you don't draw a green card for the first draw? Well, let's look and see what happens to player 4. Player 4 now has a turn. Okay, sum is still 3/10. Okay, in fact, the only player with a green card is player 1. But let's look at player 4 right now. No green cards. They are going to have to draw. They draw. No green card. They draw. No green card. They draw. All right, they got a green card that time. They can go ahead and play that green card, throw it up there, and now bring the sum to 7/10. See how that worked there? They had to keep drawing until they actually drew the card, a card in the suit that they needed, which means that they're going to have a lot of extra cards in their hand, and one of the objectives of this game is to go out. You want to get rid of all your cards. Well, let's see how this keeps going for player 4. So player 4 threw down a green cards, put the sum at 7/10. Fortunately, player 1 only has a 1/2, which if you put down a 1/2, that throws the sum over 1. And guess what? Player 4 turned out pretty good there. They won that hand and can lead the next hand. All right, so now player 4 throws down a 7/16. Okay, throws down one of those red cards to get rid of it. Doesn't know that player 1 doesn't have any red cards. Player 1 is going to have to go ahead and draw. Player 1 draws a 1/16, throws that 1/16 down into the hand. Okay, now the sum is 8/16 or 1/2. Well, this worked out pretty well for player 2, but it's going to work out well for player 2 regardless of what happens, because player 2 only has one card in their hand. Okay, they've only got one card in their hand. And that card is in the correct suit. They're going to throw it and go out. So in this case, they threw out sum of 1. They end up winning the hand, but it wouldn't have mattered what they had, okay, because they would have gone out on any card. So by going out, they win that hand. Okay, great news for player 2. They win that hand and they go out. So how are we going to score this game? Well, let's first look at the number of hands that the players have. Okay, player 1 has one hand and 2 cards in their hand. Player 2 has one hand and no cards in their hand. Player 3 has one hand and 2 cards in their hand. And player 4 has two hands with 4 cards. What we typically do is we count 1/4 off for every card that you have, okay, and start scoring it up. So essentially, player 1, one hand with a 1 minus 2 cards gives them 1/2. That's a quarter plus a quarter, 1/2. Player 2 has one hand. Player 3 has one hand minus 2 cards, so they have a half. And player 4 has 2 hands, but minus 4 cards, so their score is now 1. Okay, but that doesn't include the bonus for going out. And we do actually, I typically go ahead and when I play, I like to award a bonus for going out. So how do you calculate this bonus? Well, what you do is you take the maximum number of hands from any player in the group and you add it to your score. So player 2 went out. Player 4 had the maximum number of hands. So I take those 2 hands and I add it to player 2's score. So player 4's 2 hands got added to player 2. That doesn't mean player 4 lost those 2 hands. Their score is still 1, but player 2 now has a score of 3. So the final scoring for this is going to be, okay, player 1 with the score of a half, player 2 with the score of 3, player 3 with the score of 1/2, and player 4 with the score of 1. Not really terribly complex. Remember, as long as you're playing by the same rules, everybody's playing by the same rules, hey, it's fair. Okay, it's a game. Just like any card game, you can change the rules around a little bit. Okay, there's a lot of games you can play with Fractazmic, just like there's a lot of games you can play with all of the decks, Pyramath, Prime Bomb, Fractazmic, of the IC Cards group of games. So, what do you do after this is done? Hey, you shuffle and you play another game. Okay, just as a side note, you're learning how to add fractions. But you know what? You're actually having fun. Cards are all available at iccards.com. I'm going to be putting videos up for all the different games. And thank you for all those teachers who've been out there feeding me all these new and interesting and exciting games you can play with the IC Cards different decks. Having fun, learning, getting your math, it's an awesome thing. Thanks very much. Dr. Ron signing out.